Hello, everybody, and welcome to another conversation in our series on the topic of why Black Lives Matter. Today, we will be looking at racial gatekeeping and what that is, and potentially the pitfalls associated with racial gatekeeping. So one of the things I did just to kind of be clear about what the concept is and what that entails is I actually went and looked for definitions of what racial
Granville, something happened. We don't hear you.
Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know if you like.
Now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so where did you stop hearing me?
The definitions of gatekeeping.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Right. So so I went and looked for a definition around what racial gatekeeping is, and there's no specific definition. But what I did come across was that cultural gatekeeping has been happening for quite a while. There's also been racial gatekeeping in music. And so in further exploration, what I found was that gatekeeping is actually a psychological term. And it basically means for people to maintain or stop people's access from certain things by virtue of the role that they play. And so to connect the two, I looked at what cultural gatekeeping was, and it basically plays out a lot in the music industry, specifically across hip hop versus country, where the genre of music is a very specific style. And in that specific style, a very specific story is told. And so if you look at what hip hop is versus country, you can see how those two specific styles of music almost feel exclusive of each other. And so people in the music industry tend to be gatekeepers to almost maintain the integrity of that genre or style of music. And so it makes it very difficult for artists to cross over between those two styles of music. And then when you look at something like cultural gatekeeping, it looks at what is specific to certain cultures and how cultures maintain those things, which is a way of avoiding cultural appropriation, but at the same time, it also then is a way of perpetuating cultural segregation, because it's ownership of rituals and artifacts and styles that people fight for and fight against other people co-opting. And then to take that into what racial gatekeeping now becomes, it is in essence representation by people of color or a person of color in a specific group of people where they actually where that person benefits from belonging there, but they kind of almost act as a block to other people getting access to certain things, because they are almost this token of, well, this person is achieving something, or this person is benefiting from the system, so the system is not a problem, or our policies are not a problem, or our rituals are not a problem. So racial gatekeeping becomes almost a blocker in terms of opening up dialogue to say, well, we need to look at the specifics and why is there less access to other people of color, and why are the policies not necessarily changing, or why are there not improvements in systems, in how jobs are given to people or how people are allowed to even apply for jobs. And the idea behind gatekeeping that became very interesting for me was that it plays out in a lot of places. So for instance, an estate agent might show a person of color a house in an area that is more populated by people of color, not necessarily an area that is more open or an area that is more populated by white people, for instance. Or they might propose to somebody who's buying a car that, you know, your brothers and sisters like this kind of thing without relatively saying those kind of words. So it's almost an underlying pervasive energy that people may not become very easily aware of because they wouldn't expect it in those places. Or even an employment agent proposing lower paying roles to a person of color, lower paying jobs to apply for lower paying jobs to a person of color, because it's almost the sense that those are those people's jobs. So it's a very interesting nuance, and it seems like it's been very much explored in psychology and social work and sociology, but it hasn't necessarily been surfaced as much in other areas, but the underlying current is that it's there. So one of the things that I shared with the group was a politician in the UK who's very much at the forefront of racial gatekeeping in the UK. But the inadvertent consequence of that person being at the forefront is that her party is limiting other people's access to the country. It's limiting other people's access to opportunities. And it's under the guise of, well, if she can do it, so can they. Yet they're not really opening up the access. They're not really having the conversations. They're kind of using this poster person to say, hey, there's no problems here. That's the poster's working, so there can't be a problem. So yeah, just by definition, I just felt like putting that in context for everybody, because it is a relatively new term when you now put it into the concept of racial gatekeeping. But things like gatekeeping, cultural appropriation, all those kind of things have been around for a while. So I just wanted to kind of give everybody a sense of how it all fits together. And also then to just open it up to you and like you know, because we've probably seen it. We probably just haven't been able to specifically term it or label it. So I want to open it up to the team and just find out how they feel about what I've shared in terms of the concept of gatekeeping, and then by association, the concept of racial gatekeeping.
I guess I have sort of a clarity question. So it sounds a lot like tokenism, right? But are we saying that racial gatekeeping is taking it a step further and putting people of color in like leadership roles as a way to like say we have this person in a leadership role, so we're not like lacking in diversity? And then is it also saying that the person who's in that role, like, are they aware that they are the racial gatekeeper? Or is it kind of like just I'm here, I'm doing my part, and the people who are above me are like calling the shots? Is that what it is?
So it's a lot more of the second concept that you, or second kind of definition you gave to it, in terms of that person is at the forefront of their policies, of the face of the organization. But because of them being there, the organization is able to say, hey, we don't have a problem. Look at this person. So it's not just the token in leadership, it's actually taking it a step further and using that person's race as something to say there is no racism, or there is no problem with policy, or there is no problem with practice in a certain space. So it takes it a step further, because tokenism, you can still call out and say, well, there's a token, but there's more instances of people actually advancing, whereas with racial gatekeeping, it almost feels like the opportunity for people to advance is almost curtailed, because nobody is bothering to look at where there may be challenges.
Okay, that makes sense. And it's kind of like showing like an illusion of these people in positions, but that's it. We're capping it here, sort of thing. Okay.
Yeah, but it's also taken to the next level, that those people sometimes become the proponents of the policies that are not allowing the advancement in and of itself. So they might actually become the spokesperson for something that's actually against their people, or against allowing access for people of color. And so there's a lot of almost what's in it for me energy. So as long as I get there, I don't necessarily have to pave the way for somebody else. And so they also use those people's stories as creating the illusion that other people of color are lazy, or they're inadequate, because this is a smart person who's made it, who's done it. So what are you wanting, a handout? Are you not capable? What's the story here? You know, like, actually work hard and you might achieve the same thing that that person did.
I think that's actually a multi-layered problem. Like, I agree with you with like the next level, in the sense that that person is like proposing, I don't know if it's the right term, but like anti-immigrant policies, for example, and by them proposing that, you know, the party can say, hey, we're not racist. And I feel like racial gatekeeping is like in the benefit of white people, in the sense that it's gonna attract a white electorate that was maybe not sure who to vote for, and was maybe you know, felt this kind of reticence or guilt about like excluding minorities because of their political ideas. And also, I realized with your like exchange with Diona that it's really so much more detrimental to the minorities than I thought it would be, because I don't know if you guys have this term like meritocracy. It's like the idea that you get far in life and have success only by merit in this society, which is often not the case. Often you've had like finances and the education to get far in life, and be in high position of leadership. And so I think it's reinforcing that, hey, for people that want it, like, hey, there's no racial problem. Like, if people of color really want to do that, they could. And look, we're diverse here because we have that person of color in our party, for example. And so it's up to them if they want to join us or join the opposition. And like it creates even more separation between the two parties. So yeah, I feel like it's a deep issue and problem to have to solve, and like there's like always layers to look at.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I think that the one thing that I think it fuels is a significant energy of betrayal and feeling betrayed by your own. Because at the core of it, you're almost expecting that somebody who's got a similar background to you, who's experienced some of the things that you've experienced, is likely to be more of an advocate for the anti of that kind of thing. And it seems like in the space of racial gatekeeping, those people actually become the proponents. They become the people that are expounding those policies and pushing them forward, as opposed to creating the way for change to actually happen.
Yeah, and you know what, when I was thinking about racial gatekeeping, I realized that these people, like, especially in France, they can be put in the forefront, and like the initial reaction of people of the same communities would be to lash out at them instead of, you know, criticizing and really reflecting on the source of the problem, which is the party itself. And so in some way it kind of protects the white people from the party to ever getting that kind of backlash. And yeah, that's like another layer of how it can be detrimental to the people of color in that sense.
Yeah, because also what happens is that the regressive policies that are in the way of progression are then not addressed. They're not looked at, because the concept that is commonly used is, we don't have a problem. There is no problem. And so another thing that I actually, and it was based in the social work society, and social workers looking at racism, and also just, you know, sharing what would be reasonable practice as social workers. And some of the things that has come up, that came up in my reading, was just also that because social workers deal with some of those systemic problems of people that don't have access to things, it feels to social workers like they also have a bigger role to play in changing the landscape, in asking the right questions. And so, you know, by association, because one side is stepping in one direction, it almost seems like it heavily then falls on another side to bring balance into that picture. Because people now, like this, for instance, with social workers, they seem to be taking a lot more responsibility to ensure that in their work, they are not pushing an agenda of gatekeeping, and that they're kind of highlighting it where it does come up. And I don't know if any of you have interacted with any social workers, but in my studies I have, and I know some of the heavy things that they kind of need to even just learn at university level, the kind of work that they need to cope with, even just at a university level in their practical work, because it's one of the spaces that actually, in South Africa, it's one of the spaces that requires a lot of practical work, because of the fact that they will go into spaces where they are touching families. Social workers have the power to remove kids from homes. They have the power to put people under some type of protection, to put them even into spaces where there's protection of themselves against themselves, kind of things. So they have the power to institutionalize people as well. So there's a lot more requirement on them to do a lot more practical work. And so it seems like in the shift, they are taking on as a collective a bigger energy or a bigger burden to also solve the problem, because of the fact that it's falling almost flat on the other side because of the behavior of gatekeeping in and of itself. Not necessarily the people, not necessarily the organizations, just the behavior, and highlighting the behavior and the pitfalls of that kind of behavior as well. So what feelings are coming up for you guys when you think of all of this stuff?
There's this deep level of control that comes up for me. And just like this high level of expectation almost, of not really like understanding, for those who are like the gatekeepers, like truly understanding their role that they're supposed to play, that is to like the true authentic self, instead of what society tells them or what their boss may tell them, and really having to take full responsibility of being really aware of the role that you play in any organization. And so, yeah, it's really bringing awareness of like, does what you do feel good? And if it doesn't feel good, why doesn't it feel good? And getting really clear there. But it definitely is a deep level of control. And the other thing that came up for me was this feeling of manipulation, of manipulating people into that space. Because you're right, there is certain companies where it's like, well, they'll have like a fairly high rank of an employee who's a person of color, but that is the farthest they will ever go up, no matter if they have qualifications or the skills to go higher than that. They're just going to keep them there, but also play that there's no racism in this company because one of our highest ranked people is a person of color. And Jeff actually talked about this a little bit too, because he was like, we're really rebelling a little bit against like what it looks like to have a unionist company, because the person who is the president of COU is a woman, in fact, a woman. And so really getting clear on like why we put people in position, and it's because they have the skills and they have the qualities, and they qualify to be able to be in that space. It has nothing to do with their color or if they're female or male. It has everything to do with the fact that they're just perfect for that job, and not having any underlying manipulation of, like, in a sense, something like how do I explain this, like, if there's backlash, it may just fall on that person instead of the person who hired that person into that position. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. Yeah, so definitely for me, it was just a deep level of like manipulation and control.
So one of the things that actually came up for me when you know, like doing all of this research, I just started kind of thinking back into some of the history of the struggle movement and that kind of stuff. And the thing that stood out for me, it was and it's gonna sound a little bit, I suppose it's gonna sound a little bit hectic in terms of just, like, I almost understand where during struggle times, sometimes those people that were, for lack of a better thing, the opposition or the oppressed people, for actually attacking their own people when they sided with oppressors. And one of the things I remember in South Africa, for instance, was there was this concept of called necklacing. And it was literally, and it's really awful, so just prepare yourselves. It was actually the concept that anybody that sold out the struggle to the white policeman or the white state actually had a tire put around their neck and burned. And that was called the necklacing thing. And I was like, I can almost understand why people would do those kind of things when you feel into how heavy that energy of betrayal is in that space, where this person is literally selling out. And to me, that is the energy of this concept behind racial gatekeeping. It's the energy of being sold out, or that person selling out. And yes, I agree that everybody probably doesn't feel the need to advance the cause. And everybody doesn't feel the need to get involved. But the reverse of it is that even if you're not getting involved, also then don't become an agent of oppression. Because that's then what that racial gatekeeper inadvertently or maybe advertently becomes.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like, as this all came up, I had a family member that experienced this recently, and I didn't, because it was like a few weeks ago, so I didn't realize that it was like exactly what we're talking about. But like Kanisha said, like, about how, like, she reached like a level in her company and she's only going to stay there. But like, what happened was she went for a higher position, and there was another woman that went for a higher position, and that other woman had like a bad history within the company. Like, she like left and came back, and like she didn't really know what she was doing, and like the workers like were well aware of this. Now my aunt is Indonesian, and the other woman was African American. And so they chose the other woman, and like it was like very clear that it was like the same thing that we're talking about, like racial gatekeeping. Because then after she got the position, they were like telling my aunt that maybe she could like help this other woman with her job, and my aunt was like, oh hell no, I'm getting out of here. She was like, 2 weeks, bye-bye. And like, I don't blame her at all, because that's exactly what was happening. They were using this woman to like make it look like there's not racism in the company without actually healing it. So yeah, like this is like really interesting.
And you know what? I think what you're speaking to is almost a dual thing, though, when it comes to a company. So racial gatekeeping plays out a lot more in political systems and political spaces. It's specific to policies that are not necessarily amended because of the fact that, well, we don't have a problem. Whereas what you're speaking to is a lot more of a tokenism energy, but also and I've seen it a couple of times as well, in this, this energy of almost being bypassed, and yet having to and then being asked to help somebody become successful in their role. And I remember it actually did happen to me once in my career, and that was my exact response as well. It's like, well, no, actually, if that's what you're planning on doing, by all means, put this person there. But don't expect me to pick up the slack and teach them their job.
Yeah,
it's not happening.
especially like when you're clearly already qualified to do the job too. Like,
Yeah,
no, thank you.
yeah, you know, and I think at the time it was probably not necessarily an energy of honoring myself, but actually an energy of being a little bit militant and saying, no, actually stuff you. But when I sit back and I think, well, actually, what was that energy? That energy was of actually, this should have been my role. This was my opportunity. I'm not going to create success in a space that I'm not appreciated. So at the time, I didn't see it as honoring myself, but in hindsight, it is probably one of the lessons that helped me to learn to honor myself. And so, you know, it's very interesting when you kind of sit back and you look at some things and you like, and you actually realize what the lesson was there. And when you actually, well, like when I feel into it, it's an energy of actually, I'm proud that I did that. I'm proud that I actually removed myself from a situation where I wasn't appreciated. And it wasn't to say I'm expecting or fueling somebody else's failure. It's to say that this is my value. You didn't appreciate my value. So now you can do it yourself. You can do it all by your big boy, your big girl self. I'm okay with that.
I'm thinking about that, and I think this is such a costly strategy for the leaders that have this decision. Like, I can definitely trace back to professional experiences where that happened, and I'm like, you invested so much into an employee of color, and then to shut them down and choose someone else. And so I know it's like an ego thing, you know, it's like wanted to not change what was already there. But this is so expensive in like energy and everything. And it's so dumb. It's literally the dumbest thing to do. Like you're shooting yourself in the foot. And that's all I can think about.
Comes back to, I want to come back to that energy because it came up in my subconscious this morning, which is that betrayal energy that Granville Camp, like they really are betraying themselves, but not being honest with the truth of what's happening here. So it definitely comes back to that betrayal energy, which I would like to heal. So yeah, absolutely. And it's I think a lot of it comes back to like it feels like just like a fear of like judgment and a need to control.
Yeah, Kanisha, I think you touched on a very important piece, and you know, it's always good to just take the step back and feel into the energy of what to feel into what that feeling is, what energy that what that energy feeds in terms of a feeling. And I agree with you in the sense that it is worth exploring that feeling of having been betrayed or feeling betrayed or sold out, because I think that that's possibly part of the hurt in this space within this concept.
Yeah, absolutely. And personally, I had never heard of this term gatekeeping until this week when they brought it up in the discussion. And I was like, what is gatekeeping? Like, I had no idea. So I had to figure that out. I felt kind of silly, but that's okay. It's one of the things that I love about this discussion is that I learn a lot of things that just was not talked about growing up. terms that I'd never heard about. And now I'm able to educate myself here and then also heal the consciousness in this space too.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And that's really why I went and like dug into it to make sure that, because like on the surface of it, I get the concept, but there's for me there was just something deeper to go and look at. And when I did look at it, it was like it's concepts from 1927, 1943. It's just the fact that it's now brought into the space where it's aligned to what happens at a racial level. And so, you know, it's kind of it's the next level. And again, you know, it takes me back to, I understand why there was some of that militant behavior around actually selling out the sellouts kind of thing, you know. So yes, I agree. Let's go into that space where we heal because it's the energy of betrayal that I think is quite a deep place to heal in the sense that it kind of makes you feel unsupported. You know?
Yeah, what's also coming up, I think this is odd, but what just came up to me was that saying that like a lot of like the crimes that happen in like Chicago are Black people killing Black people and like going against each other and themselves in that way. That's that same energy that's coming up. It's just like a thought that came to my mind, so I thought I would share that. And like feeling yeah, I guess like feeling like they have to like climb on top of each other to get to the top in a sense, or like eliminate each other to get to the top.
Yeah, I'm definitely I definitely am feeling the bigger hurt around the sense of betrayal. So yeah, let's go there. So who's keen to work with me this time?
I am.
Cool, let's go for it. So just when you feel into that space.
Okay.
And having gone through the conversation that we've gone through so far, what feeling does it bring up for you?
Sadness.
Yeah. What is that sadness about?
This feeling like you can't trust anyone.
And can you see that part of yourself that feels like she can't trust anyone? And there may even be the association of not being able to trust herself.
Yeah.
If you were to sit her down and ask her what she needed to feel loved right now, what would she say to you?
Acceptance.
Would you like to go ahead and just give all of that acceptance that she's asking for right now?
Yeah. I feel a heaviness in my shoulder, so I'd feel like it's support. Needing a deep level of support.
Could also be that the energy and the heaviness in your shoulders is related to feeling burdened. feeling burdened by the energy, possibly of what we've spoken about, and possibly by assuming the energy of responsibility in some way or another.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you took off that mantle of responsibility, that cloak of responsibility, and you allowed God to take it from you, how would you feel right now?
Relieved, lighter.
Mm. There's that lightness and relief returns. Is there any other feeling that comes up?
Uh, fear of abandonment. It's kind of came up like somehow like by releasing this responsibility, I'm somehow abandoning my brothers and sisters.
Is it possible for you to abandon them?
No.
And so is it acceptable to just give that responsibility to God as well?
Yeah, it's just to give that responsibility to God as well.
Yeah. Yeah, you can choose to partner with God and God will show you your peace. But the overall thing doesn't belong to you. And so as you partner with God, your peace will become clear and your peace will fit you perfectly. And that might be your mantle, not the overall responsibility.
Yeah.
And how does that feel?
That feels peaceful.
Hmm. And as your peace returns, how does the heaviness in your shoulders feel now?
Feels good.
Hmm.
Yeah,
As
so
you
it's kind
allow
of
your
like,
peace and your lightness to return, is there anything else coming up for you?
yeah.
Mm.
It was sadness for like those who feel that they have to betray another to receive their good.
Hmm. Is it okay to have compassion for them and their choices and allow God to direct them where God needs to direct them?
Yeah.
And as you have that compassion and you just allow yourself to love them, even through their choices, what does that free you from?
It frees me from just releasing attachment to their choices. It frees me from having a belief that like their choice has any weight on like my value or my worth.
Mm. Yeah, that choice doesn't have power in your life. Your choice has power in your life because you create in your reality with God. And so it's safe to choose a new reality. It's safe to choose for your highest good to prevail all the time.
Yeah, I just recognize that like the where I was betraying myself was believing in the lie that someone had power in my reality.
Mm. Mm. That's a good awareness. Very nice. So as you release the illusion that somebody else has power in your reality, how do you feel now?
Emotional. I'm just releasing that.
Is it good emotional, freeing
Yeah.
emotional,
I think
bad
it's like
emotional?
upheaval. I just like releasing that lie, releasing or just realizing the truth that no one has power in my reality.
Oh, and as that illusion is released, you allow yourself to lift off that constriction because you are powerful in your reality.
Yeah. Yeah, I choose to free myself from betraying myself.
Hmm. And is it also okay that you learned this lesson through the process of your healing? And so the lesson was appropriate for you.
Yes, absolutely.
And how does that feel?
Like I can trust God.
Amen. Amen. We can trust God here.
Yeah.
Are there any other feelings coming up for you?
Just peace returning back to me.
Awesome. Would you like to just allow, well, let's just ask you if you feel like it's complete.
Yes, I do feel like it's complete.
Awesome. Would you like to just allow all of that to just integrate into your heart space? Just allow it to be there with you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that feels good. That feels significantly lighter as well.
Yeah, I do feel much lighter too. Much lighter.
So I'd like to just check in with the rest of the team. How are you feeling about where this conversation started and where we are right now?
It's feeling a lot lighter, yeah. Yeah, it's feeling peaceful. I I can relate to, I guess, wanting to take responsibility for people who do the gatekeeping. And like constantly asking myself, why would they do that? Why would they push down people from their communities? For, I don't know, whatever reason, selfish reasons maybe. And yeah, I guess it's not our job to figure it out. And it's not our job to, yeah, we don't have to leak power to it as well, because it doesn't, in politics, it doesn't mean anything if we heal and choose change anyway. So yeah, we are not devoid of power here. It feels good to know that truth.
Yeah, that's what I really love about like Jeff and Shalea's teaching too. Like, you know, you can always claim your power back and do the mirror exercise and heal everything that comes up.
Yeah, I'm also in this space of like wondering why someone would choose to be in that role. Um, and it does feel like selfishness, kind of like what Yureen was saying. And then I also wonder, like, how do we combat that? Like, how do we respond to it? And you mentioned like the neckties or the necklaces. And that doesn't feel good, you know? But I do feel like when things like that happen, you know, you have to respond some sort of way. And so I feel like it goes back to what Kanisha was saying in the beginning, like we have to look at why we're making the choices that we're making. And if it doesn't feel good, why does it not feel good? But yeah, like Yureen was saying earlier as well, there's a lot of layers. But it does feel lighter now.
Yeah, I think what you touched on about like why, wanting to know why, and Granville talked about just having compassion for their choice and then not having attachment to their choices. And then also coming back to yeah, just recognizing that like the only way we can really combat it is by making a new choice within ourselves and healing that space with love and with the mirror exercise, because of course love is going to conquer it. And so the more that we give energy on trying to figure out why, and is really just like a feeling of waste of energy, really, of just getting clear on like the feeling of it and then healing through it at the core and releasing attachment to their choices. That's been a theme for me this last like month, is releasing attachment to everyone else's choices. Because sometimes, or a lot of the times, people, unless they're doing this work, a lot of their choices seem to align with fear for them for a good majority, if that's just the consciousness they're in, until they make a new choice in that. But it's us, our awareness alone is really what's going to start healing it and combating that.
Yeah, and I think like what Kanisha was saying, like that is the response, like you healing your part of it. And then like if you are in a situation where you have to like communicate something with someone, you always want to make sure that you know you did do your healing work and you're speaking from like a place of peace and power, because otherwise no one's going to listen to you. Like if you didn't heal your upset and you're like really upset and like yeah, it's like peace and power is the best way to respond.
And also, I also feel that there will be times when you are actually called to act. And one of the things that I'm not uncomfortable with and actually quite comfortable with is to say, as Anastasia said, like you do your healing work, but there is also the time when you are called to act. And what does that acting look like, for instance? And so for me, it's having the conversations. It's not supporting those parties, spaces, practices, policies. That there is power in what you have in terms of your vote and those kind of things. In terms of the conversations, one of the things that was very clear to me at the beginning of our BLM conversations was, I read something around, it's not enough to say that you're not racist. You actually have to be actively anti-racist, which means it's not laughing at that silly joke because it might offend somebody else. It's like if you feel like the joke doesn't work in any space, that's something to say, well, actually, I don't appreciate that. And I've had this conversation with people before, like, you know, like somebody, like with South Africa, we've got this classification of African, colored, Indian, and white. So those are basically the classifications. And somebody made a joke said something about colored people. And I was like, you know, well, actually, no, you are generalizing. All colored people aren't like that. All African people are not like that. All white people are not like that. It's just highlighting the conversation. It's like another thing. I think one of us at some point also, and I'm not sure if anybody remembers it, but it was also watching a Red Table talk where the question was actually, have you looked around your circle of friends? Who's in your circle of friends? Are you actually getting to know people? Are you understanding where they're coming from? Are you understanding what has driven the history of those people? So it's all of those kind of things, Diana, when you say, well, what can we do? It's actually all of us actively showing an interest in each other, showing an interest in what sits behind the face or the name. You don't have to take responsibility for anybody, but it is our duty to learn about the world that we live in. If we are hoping to, one, heal in the spaces where we need to heal, and two, to effect change in the spaces where we have the ability to effect change. So, you know, it's kind of it's very circular, but it's not necessarily circular. It's more of a spiral. As you experience it and heal, you go deeper and you go deeper and you find more and you find more. But that spiral always continues. And like next year, this time, we'll probably have some special definitions of racial gatekeeping that we don't have right now. But again, it's that thing. And if we come back to this conversation, even in 3 months' time, the healing piece will be different because we've healed this piece. But it's about awareness, and I think it's good to be aware. You don't necessarily have to live in the world, but know what's happening in the world around you. So that would be my share of saying, well, if somebody wanted to know, well, what can I actually do about it? It's learn so that you're informed. Learn so that you can have a conversation that's worth having. So yeah, that was my soapbox moment.
I love that you say that too, because that's something that Jeff had brought up to me in group class. He was like, being a leader is not having a conversation by yourself. And so you have to learn about these things and then have those hard conversations, even if they're uncomfortable. And that is where the healing comes from. Even if there's conflict, really learning that healthy relationships involve conflict sometimes and just moving through it. Yeah, absolutely. I feel much more educated in this term and understanding of what gatekeeping is. So thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. Awesome. So I feel like that's a good note to end our conversation on, unless anybody else has anything to add right now. We're good. Cool. Perfect. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to everybody that's joined us and followed our conversation over the last year. We look forward to seeing all of you again next week, and we invite you to like and subscribe to our Church of Union YouTube channel, where you will find all our previous conversations and our series around why Black Lives Matter, and you will also find any other live discussions that have happened in the Unionism Spiritual Discussion group on Facebook. So yeah, please feel free to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we will see all of you next week. Ciao, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.